So, have you ever thought about what would happen if, like, all the really talented, innovative people just vanished?
Yeah, it's a chilling thought, isn't it? It's kind of like what hangs over the whole world we're about to dive into in these excerpts, especially from Atlas Shrugged.
Right, like, who is this John Gold everyone keeps mentioning? It's spooky.
For sure, and he seems to be connected to this whole decline. But we're getting out of ourselves. We've got some pretty fascinating sources to unpack here, focusing on this whole industrial world, how innovation happens or doesn't, and how society reacts to it all.
Totally. And it's not just abstract ideas, right? We've got these really strong personalities to follow, like Dagny Taggart trying to save her family's railroad, Taggart Transcontinental.
Oh yeah, she's a force of nature for sure. And then there's Henry Rearden, the guy who creates this revolutionary new metal.
Rearden metal. It's a big deal, but not everyone's thrilled about it.
Definitely not. And then we have this, well, mysterious would be one word. Francisco Banconia, he kind of throws a wrench in the works for everyone.
He does. So, before we get lost in all the trauma, what are we really trying to understand in this deep dive?
It seems like we're looking at a few big things. How these core industries like railroads are struggling to survive, how something new and radical like Rearden metal gets received, and how the government and even just public opinion start to put a real squeeze into those who, well, make things work.
Makes sense. We want to understand the motivations of these big players, especially Dagny, Rearden, and Francisco, see where their choices lead, and really grasp the bigger picture of this society that seems like it's on the verge of dot something.
Exactly. Like, is it progress or collapse?
Maybe both. Let's start with Taggart Transcontinental. What kind of a mess is Dagny dealing with?
Well, for starters, there's this fierce competition with Phoenix Durango, and the finances aren't exactly rosy. But Dagny, she's determined to make this Rio Norte line work, even if it means mortgaging the entire system. She sees the potential to connect to Ellis Wyatt's oil fields, and that's a game changer.
Bold move. But from what I've read, her brother Jim, the president of Taggart Transcontinental, doesn't seem so gung-ho.
Oh, he's definitely not on board. He keeps harping on about past ventures that went south, like that thing with Associated Steel. It keeps mentioning some Mexican catastrophe.
Which, by the way, isn't really explained anywhere, at least not in these excerpts.
Nope, leaves us hanging. But here's the kicker. The board actually greenlit those very projects that Jim's now using as ammunition against Dagny.
So, classic blame game.
Things like it, Jim's quick to point fingers, especially at Dagny, but he conveniently forgets that these were group decisions. It kind of makes you wonder about a company's internal dynamics. How do they handle risk? How do they view innovation?
Important questions, especially since it's not just internal squabbles. The entire railroad industry is in a slump.
Right, and that leads to this talk about squashing competition, for the public welfare, of course.
Always for the public welfare.
Of course, there's this telling moment when new regulations finally pass. You'd think there'd be some, I don't know, celebration or relief. But no, everyone's just kind of, meh. They're all look at Dan Conway, the head of Phoenix Durango, and you get this sense that they're all just hoping he'll somehow pull a rabbit out of a hat.
So what's Conway's deal? He seems pretty defeated, right?
Totally disillusioned. This guy has dealt with real-world challenges like treacherous terrain and unreliable technology. He knows how to fight those battles. But this is different. This kind of battle, as he puts it, has him stumped. And then he asks that question, who is John Galt?
Yeah, that's creepy.
It is, and I think it hints at this deeper feeling of helplessness, like something big and unseen is at play, and they're all pawns in some grand game.
Okay, so railroads are a mess, the competition is fierce, and some mysterious force is at work. What does Dagny do?
Dagny. She doubles down on the Rio Norte line. She goes straight to Henry Rearden, puts the pressure on him to get his revolutionary Rearden medal delivered ASAP. She's not backing down.
That's Dagny, always pushing forward. But speaking of Rearden Metal, wasn't the whole line supposed to be called the John Galt line?
It was, unofficially, but then, yeah, they officially changed it back to Rio Norte.
But the workers still call it the John Galt line.
That's right. It's almost like, even though it's not the official name, that name represents something more, something about the spirit of the project, defying the odds, the sheer willpower behind it all.
Okay, fascinating. So we've got Dagny fighting for her railroad survival. Let's shift gears and talk about Rearden Metal. What's so groundbreaking about it, and how's the world reaction to this new wonder material?
Well, the way Rearden Metal's creation is described, it's like witnessing some kind of a, I don't know, industrial birth. It's almost a spiritual experience for Rearden. And then he makes this bracelet out of it, this perfect symbol of his achievement. And who does he want to give it to? His wife, he says, but not the woman he's actually married to.
Whoa. Okay, so right off the bat, we're seeing some serious cracks in his marriage and his personal life.
Definitely. And the way his family reacts to the bracelet just emphasizes that disconnect. Lillian, his wife, she cares about it only as a piece of jewelry. Like, oh, how novel, a bracelet made of metal. Philip, his brother, seems confused and maybe even a little resentful. And then there's his mother, who's all, why didn't you just give me cash? That's selfish. They completely miss the point.
It's like they can't grasp the significance of what he's accomplished. They don't understand the value of innovation, the sheer effort and genius behind it. It's more than just a bracelet. It's a symbol of something much bigger.
You got it. And this lack of understanding, it's not just about the bracelet. It bleeds into everything. Like when Rearden offers Philip money, you see this mix of duty and emptiness in him.
It's like he's going through the motions.
Exactly. And Philip's reaction is just so flat, so unsurprised. It's clear their relationship is more about transactions than genuine affection.
So, dysfunctional family dynamics aside, is anyone else giving Rearden a hard time about his medal?
Oh, you bet. The National Council of Metal Industries, they come knocking, all concerned about public safety and responsible use of resources. But you get the feeling it's more about protecting their own interests, their established way of doing things. Orrin Boyle, he's the real mouthpiece for their ideology. He starts talking about private property as a trusteeship.
Okay, wait, what does that even mean?
It's like saying, sure, you own it, but you're really just holding it for society, and society through the government can tell you what to do with it.
That's a pretty slippery slope.
Totally. It's all about control.
So while all this is going on, is Dagny just sitting back and watching?
Are you kidding? Dagny's out there making things happen. She stumbled across these switches made of Rearden metal at Ellis Wyatt's oil fields, and she's immediately intrigued. She sees the potential where others don't. She ends up in this intense negotiation with Mr. Moen from Amalgamated Switch and Signal.
And Moen, he's the one who was keen on Rearden metal earlier, right?
The very same. But Dagny, she's got this way of seeing the bigger picture, the long game.
So what happens? Does she convince him?
Oh, she does. And this leads to a pretty crucial alliance, albeit a secret one at first. Rearden sees something in Dagny, this shared drive to make things work, and he agrees to supply the Rearden metal for the John Galt line. And get this, he even exceeds the original steel order.
He believes in what she's doing.
Absolutely. They're both driven by results, by this urge to build something great, something lasting.
It's a good partnership, you know, the visionary leader and the genius inventor.
It is. And the thing is, despite all the doubts surrounding the John Galt line and this untested Rearden metal, Taggart Transcontinental stock starts to climb. Even people like Mr. Moen, Ben Neely, and Paul Larkin, who've been hesitant before, start quietly buying in.
So maybe not everyone's so blind to what Dagny and Rearden are trying to do.
Maybe not. And then there's this juicy bit about the rumor of faulty bridge girders on the John Galt line. Turns out it was just a rumor, but James Taggart, he's almost got disappointed when he finds out it's not true.
He was hoping for Dagny to fail.
Pretty much. Philip's reaction's even more interesting. He seems to relish the thought of his brother's project crashing and burning. And Lillian, oh, she uses it as an opportunity to play the victim and throw shade at Dagny.
Wow, they're a real supportive bunch.
Seriously. But then the John Galt line, it opens. And it's a huge success. And the Taggart Transcontinental engineers, they're practically tripping over themselves to drive the first train.
Talk about a vote of confidence.
It really is. They see what Dagny and Rearden have created, and they want to be a part of it. It's inspiring.
And what about Dagny and Rearden? How's their relationship developing amidst all this chaos?
During the first run of the train, they share this quiet, incredibly powerful moment. It's not just about business anymore. There's a deep, unspoken connection between them.
Okay, so their relationship is heating up. The John Galt line is a success. Rearden metal is proving its worth. But I'm sure there's some people who aren't too happy about this, right?
Oh, absolutely. Rearden's competitors are starting to feel the heat, especially Orrin Boyle. He's falling behind, can't meet his orders. Rearden metal is in high demand, and Rearden's got this long waiting list, and he's prioritizing his old friends.
Loyalty, good to see it. But this isn't just about one guy's success or failure, is it?
Nope. One of the excerpts describes this young man who sees the Rearden mills bustling with activity. It's a stark contrast to the stagnation and decline he sees everywhere else.
So Rearden's success is actually injecting some life into a pretty bleak economic landscape.
Exactly. He's proving that innovation can thrive, even in this environment. But speaking of stagnation, what about the State Science Institute? They got all that funding, and they were supposed to be the best and brightest.
What are they up to?
Well, they've been trying to replicate Ellis Wyatt's oiled success, but so far it's a big flop. And instead of, reevaluating their methods, they're blaming antisocial sabotage.
That's convenient.
Right. And they're using a ton of oil themselves, even as they're failing to figure out how to produce more. It's pretty ironic.
Sounds like they're part of the problem, not the solution. What about Dr. Stadler? He's the big name there, right?
He is, and he's got this pretty cynical view of science, especially abstract research. He's basically dependent on government funding, which means people like Wesley Mauch have a lot of sway over what he does.
Not good.
Not at all. It's like scientific inquiry is being stifled by politics and bureaucracy.
Speaking of which, let's talk about Directive 10-289. What a doozy.
Yeah, this thing is a game changer. The government basically freezes everything, production, wages, prices, and get this, they suspend patents and copyrights.
Wait, so no one owns their ideas anymore?
That's the gist of it.
Wow, that's a whole new level of control. How do people react to this?
Well, there's shock, obviously. But James Taggart, his reaction is chillin'. He's basically like, if my companies go down, everyone else should go down with them.
That's disturbing.
It is. And then you have Wesley Mouch, who's basically shrugging off the whole thing, saying displaced workers are just victims, a necessary sacrifice for the greater good.
So the government is taking control of the economy, people are losing their jobs, and no one seems to care.
That's the scary part. They've bought into this idea that the collective is more important than the individual, that sacrificing your freedom is somehow a noble thing.
It's messed up.
It is. And Rearden, he's wrestling with all this. He talks about how the world seems to have embraced this code of torture, where good is punished and evil is rewarded. And then he realizes that he's been complicit in this system, that he's played by their rules. It's a huge wake-up call for him.
It makes you think about how we sometimes participate in systems that ultimately harm us.
Definitely. And meanwhile, people are disappearing. Richard Halley, the composer, vanishes. Ellis Wyatt, his oil fields go up in flames, and he's gone. There's this growing sense of unease, like the world itself is coming undone.
It's unsettling, for sure.
And then there's this small but really powerful story about Lee Hunsaker and the Starnes heirs. It's a microcosm of what's happening on a larger scale. Hunsaker represents this new breed of businessman who thrives under this system of control. He takes over a failing business, strips it for parts, and leaves the original owners, the Starnes heirs, with nothing.
He profits from their loss.
Exactly. And the Starnes heirs, they're left to pick up the pieces. Some try to adapt, to find new ways to survive. Others just give up. A pretty grim picture.
But even in this bleakness, there are still flickers of resistance. Like Eddie Williers, what he does is pretty gutsy.
Oh yeah, he refuses to tell Taggart where the Rearden medal is. His loyalty is to Rearden, not to some faceless bureaucracy.
And Taggart, he's furious, right?
Totally. He's all about duty to the people, about following the dictates of the Unification Board. It's like he doesn't even grasp the concept of individual loyalty or integrity.
It's like they're speaking different languages.
Exactly. And it's not just about ideology. The whole system is starting to fall apart. They impose these production quotas, and the quality of everything just plummets. We hear about burnt stew being served, faulty typewriters.
It's like everything is breaking down.
It is. And then there's this chilling story about the Taggart Comet, the train wreck. They prioritize speed over safety, and people die. And what's even worse, there were people who knew about the risks but didn't speak up.
So negligence, complicity, it's a recipe for disaster.
It is. And the people on the train, they represent all the different factions in this society, the ones who are thriving under this new order, the ones who are struggling, the ones who are just numb.
Wow. Powerful imagery. So is there any hope left in this world?
Well, Dagny, she goes to Woodstock and sees all this inefficiency, all this wasted potential. And she's got ideas, ways to improve things, but she doesn't even try anymore. Why bother? Everyone's just accepted that things are the way they are. The road's always been that way.
Resignation, apathy.
Exactly. And Eddie Williers, he's feeling this too. He sees Rearden and Dagny getting indicted for selling Rearden metal, and he's like, isn't anyone going to stand up for them?
He's one of the few who sees the injustice.
He is. And then we have Ken Dagny. He has this encounter with someone. It's heavily implied to be John Gold. And it changes him. He just walks away from his successful coal business, asserts his right to exist. It's like a spark of rebellion.
So there's still fight left in some people.
There is. Then we have this face-off between Rearden and Ragnar Danesgold, the so-called outlaw. Danesgold gives Rearden gold payment for the Rearden metal he stole.
Hold on, he stole Rearden metal and is paying for it.
It's complex. Rearden refuses the gold, condemns Danesgold's methods, even though he gets why he did it. He's lost hope, but he clings to the fact that he's always lived by his own code.
It's tragic, but also, I don't know, kind of heroic.
It is. And then we've got this almost comical situation with Kip Chalmers. He needs to get to a rally, and he just assumes Taggart Transcontinental will make it happen like it's his right. It's a little moment of absurd humor in this otherwise pretty grim situation.
Right, because the whole system is built on the sense of entitlement.
You got it. And then comes the final blow. Directive 10-289 suspends the Office of Patents and Copyrights.
So no more legal protection for innovation.
Nope. It's the ultimate attack on individual achievement. They're basically saying, your ideas don't belong to you anymore. They belong to the state. It's chilling.
And what about Rearden's trial? How does that play out?
It's a total sham. But the reactions of the other businessmen are interesting. They condemn him publicly, but privately, they try to help him, but always under the guise of public service. They're too scared to openly defy the government. Bertram Scudder, the writer, he sees right through them.
He's always the cynical observer.
He is. And Rearden, he's just disgusted. He sees how small and pathetic his enemies are, and he realizes that everyone, even himself, is complicit in this whole mess. It's a moment of harsh truth.
So what happens to Rearden after the trial?
He's chunched. He's not the same man who went into that courtroom. He's not going to be too easy anymore. And Lillian, she just gets worse. She's jealous of Dagny, accuses her of all sorts of things. It's pathetic, but also kind of sad. Rearden defends Dagny, of course, because he knows she's one of the few good ones left.
So their relationship is really falling apart.
It is. And Dagny, she's caught in the middle of it all. She has feelings for Rearden, but she sees the mess his life is, and she's got her own battles to fight.
And all the while, people are still disappearing.
Yeah, there's talk about this talented motor inventor who's vanished. And there's this telling anecdote about a storekeeper who's just accepted that the roads will be flooded for weeks every year. Like it's just a fact of life.
So they've just given up on trying to fix things.
It seems that way. They've settled for mediocrity, for a world where nothing gets better, where talent is squashed, and innovation is a distant memory.
That's a pretty bleak picture.
It is. But remember, this is just one perspective, one world within this vast and complex tapestry of ideas. What we've uncovered in this deep dive is a story about the clash between individual will and the crushing weight of a system that seeks to control everything. It's a warning about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of fighting for what you believe in, even when all hope seems lost.
So what do we do with all this? I mean, it's a fascinating story, but how does it connect to us, to our world?
That's the big question, isn't it? Look at the choices Dagny, Rearden, and Francisco make. What do their actions tell us about their values, about how they see the world? Are there any parallels to the challenges we face today with technology, with individual liberty, with the role of government? And what about this shadow that hangs over everything, this John Galt figure? Is he a symbol of hope, of rebellion, or something more sinister? I think the real power of these excerpts is that they force us to ask these questions, to confront these uncomfortable truths, and to decide for ourselves what kind of world we want to live in.
It definitely gives you a lot to think about.